Salutations, my dearest friends. My name is Samantha, and today I'm going to be talking about some of my favorite novellas. Hello, how are you? Welcome back to my channel. Welcome back. It's a really exciting video, and I'm so happy to be filming it right now because I'm not only going to be talking about some of my favorite novellas, but I'm going to be talking about a upcoming readathon that I planned with some of my favorite content creators and also my dearest friends. I love them so much. If you guys know anything about me, you know I love a good novella. I love a good, short, steamy, smutty novella. They're some of my favorite things. So I was talking to some of my friends, and we've been wanting to do a readathon like this for quite some time, calling it the Novellathon. This is a novella readathon. For a whole week, we are just going to be reading a bunch of novellas, prompts. We have different graphics to use on Instagram. We're going to have reading sprints and live shows and a giveaway. So it's just really fun time. We talk about the lovely ladies who are going to be joining me and who are hosting this with me. I am hosting this with Tiffany from Tiff Talks Pages, Avery from Ava's Romance Books, and Rachel from Rachel Reads and Sings. Leave all their videos down below because they're also going to be giving novella recommendations. So really what this readathon is, it's going to be between February 6th and February 12th. Just a week for you to read as many novellas as possible. It is a Valentine themed readathon since it's so close to Valentine's Day, and Valentine's Day is my favorite holiday ever. So yeah, I'm just super stoked to be doing this readathon with my lovely friends. I have a lot of novella recommendation videos. I actually have a whole playlist that on my channel. I think it's like 15 plus videos. A few months ago, I actually did a video where I read a novella every single day for a month. So I have like 30 novellas in that one video. Link the playlist down below if you want even more recommendations. But in this video, I'm going to be going over the prompts that we have for the readathon. Honestly, it's a free-for-all. You can essentially read whatever you want. But if you want to follow the prompts and join us on Instagram with like our reading sprints and all that good stuff, I'm going to go over all the prompts and give you recommendations for each one. So let's go ahead and jump right in. First, I want to talk about our group pick. We are going to be reading Cupid's Peak, which is a part of the Hala Nights novella series. This author writes a bunch of novellas featuring different holidays, and this one is Valentine's Day, so it's so perfect for this readathon. It releases February 7th, which is right before the readathon, and it hits a couple of our prompts. It's less than 100 pages. It's holiday themed. It has a red or pink cover. Our heroine ends up getting set up on a blind date by her sister, and it turns out the hero is an NHL player, and they decide to have a little fun. They play a game of truth or dare and kind of like spice things up for Valentine's. This one sounds really good, and I'm really happy the girls picked this one. Okay, so let's go into each individual prompt. The first prompt is a novella under 100 pages. Most of the novellas I read tend to be around like the 80-page mark. I would recommend is Big Bet by Casey Mint. Casey Mint is by far one of my favorite novella authors ever. I adore all of her novellas, and this one is my favorite. It is a part of her Big Boy novella series where she writes a bunch of novellas about plus-size heroes, and it's just my favorite. I love it so much. This one is a friends to lovers romance, and it follows a burlesque dancer and a blackjack dealer, and they work at the same casino. They walk each other home every day. They spend lunches with each other, and they're just best friends that are secretly pining for each other. In this novella, they decide to go for it and kind of like go off of the chemistry they have for one another, and it's so sweet. Like, this is such a sweet novella, but it's also kind of steamy. The next one is Making Their Vows by Jessica Kane. This one is a young adult novella. Our characters are, I think they're both 18, just about to graduate high school into college. So our heroine comes from a family that is very wealthy, and some school friends end up going to this underground like fighting rink, and that is where she meets our hero. Our hero comes from a completely different background. He is actually the sole provider for him and his sister. He comes from a not so nice part of Boston, I believe is where they're from, and he is fighting this underground circuit to make money for him and his sister, and he's also trying to be a professional boxer. They end up meeting at the fight, and there is an instant connection that is just like electric. And I loved this book because our hero was equally sweet and possessive, and they just felt like soulmates. It does have a zaddy kink, but it does not have an age gap. It's short, it's steamy, and it actually has a follow-up novella that follows them after they get married and him like trying to make a name for himself in the boxing industry. So that one is also really good. Next up is a novella that's on Kindle Unlimited, and again, most of these books are. The first one that I want to talk about is The Stranger in Seat 8B by Nikki Castle. And this one is such a fun novella. Corey from Novel Life, or It's a Novel Life, recommended this to me. The heroine is on an airplane and she ends up having chemistry with the man that is sitting next to her. The plane ride, they're kind of like flirting back and forth, and when they land, the connection flight is delayed. So they have to spend the night at wherever they're at, and they end up deciding to have like a one-night stand with one another at a hotel room. They have one steamy night together and you follow what happens after that. And it is such a cute, like meet cute, such an adorable meet cute, but it's also incredibly steamy. The next one I want to recommend is one that I have talked about endlessly on my channel, and that is Divine River by Marina Vivancos. Now, Marina Vivancos has quickly become one of my favorite authors. Anytime that someone asks me for a recommendation now, I'm like, Divine River by Marina Vivancos. This book is sweepingly romantic. I feel like I cannot even describe this book well, but I'm going to try. I'm going to try. This is an angsty, emotional, friends to lovers romance. It's a romance, but it also follows our characters' mental health journey, them coming to terms with their own sexuality, and it is just so beautifully written. So our main character, Mike, lives in a very small town. He has always identified as gay, but his family is not accepting, or rather his father is not accepting of that. And again, he comes from a very small town where he feels like he cannot be himself. And he has discovered that he loves being both masculine and feminine, taking the time to discover how he wants to identify, to come to terms with his own sexuality. It's hard for him because he feels like he has never been able to be himself with someone. So our other hero, Jason, this is a male-male romance, moves next door to him and they become instant friends. Jason supports him and loves him just the way he is and really helps him on that journey of discovering himself. And like seeing Mike fall in love with who he is as a person as he is simultaneously falling in love with his best friend is magical. So magical. So I follow Marina Vivancos on her newsletter. She came out with a newsletter kind of like introducing herself, and she was saying how she is, I believe she's a former therapist or maybe a current therapist, but her books are focused on mental health and a character's personal journey on top of the romance. And when you know that, her writing just makes so much sense. Yes, her books are sweepingly romantic. They are also a little bit steamy. They're also angsty and just like gorgeous, almost therapeutic to read her books because they're so emotional. And I love this book so much and I want everyone to read it, and I had to recommend it. The next prompt is any novella by a BIPOC author, and I have a couple to recommend to you. Another one of my favorite novella authors is Risley Adams. I love most of her novellas, so I'm going to talk about two right now. The first one is Go Deep. So our heroine is an erotica author and she is going through a little bit of a writing slump and a bad breakup, and she feels like she needs a little bit of inspiration. So she ends up propositioning Xander, who is her best friend, and she kind of like wants to enter into a friends with benefits situation so that they can have a fun, steamy time. And they do. Let me tell you, she gets the inspiration. Yes, she does. This is so sexy. It is so romantic. I loved this Friends to Lovers romance. Highly recommend. Another one that I really like is Surrender by Risley Adams. This one is a second chance romance. So our characters were friends in college. In college, they were both moving to completely different areas of the world. They never wanted to ruin their friendship because they have like a big friendship group and they didn't want to ruin that dynamic. But the night they graduate, they end up flirting with each other and having a fun, steamy time and realizing that they do have a lot of chemistry, but it's just like not the right time. So they end up making a pact that in a couple of years, if they're both single, they're going to meet up and be with each other for like 3 days. It's kind of like that Friends episode or like that marriage pact. Like if we're not married by 30, we're gonna marry each other or like whatever. It's basically what this is. So a couple years pass, she forgets about the deal until he texts her with the hotel information of where they're going to meet, and they end up meeting for like 3 nights and having fun, steamy time. This has a light BDSM element to it, also a little bit of a praise kink. Love. Absolutely love. Next is Heartless by Daniel Allen. Daniel Allen has a bunch of novellas on Kindle Unlimited that are really great. This one is just one of my favorites. This is a surprise pregnancy novella. So it follows our hero named Easy, and his name is exactly how he is. He's easygoing, he's laid back, and he's also a little bit of a player. So he gets a late night text and he thinks it's like a booty call, but it turns out to be an unknown number of a girl telling him that he got her pregnant. And he actually doesn't even know who he got pregnant. He's like racking his brain to all the people that he slept with. And it turns out it's our heroine, who he knows through mutual friends. They originally met at their mutual friend's wedding, and they've like seen each other throughout events because they have mutual friends, and they just like hook up throughout those different events, and then they go their separate ways. But this time she's pregnant, tends to raise the baby by herself, but our hero decides to get his stuff together and become a dad, and also explore that romance with her. And it is really cute, actually. I liked this one a lot. Okay, I have another one. I said I'm going to keep to one recommendation per prompt, but I have a lot for this one. Next is Neighborly by Katrina Jackson. Boy, oh boy, this novella is so freaking steamy and delicious, okay? It is a romance that's like an open relationship slash poly romance, which you guys know is my favorite thing ever. Our main heroine and our hero end up moving in together for the very first time, and they kind of like rent this sub-complex from another couple that like lives across from them. Our hero is a boxer, and our heroine like really supports his career, and they're kind of like starting their life together, their first home, they're about to get married, like all this stuff, right? But when they move into this new house, there's the couple right next to them, and the two heroines, the two girls in the couple, end up having like a very intense chemistry and attraction to one another. And the husbands are into it. They're like, you know what? You guys do your thing. We're into it. Let's have an open relationship. And they do. And it's just like fun and steamy. Communication is so good. The relationships are so healthy. I loved this dynamic of an open relationship slash poly romance. Like, I feel like it was written so freaking well. Next is a monster romance, and for this one I'm going to recommend an anthology. What I want to recommend is Bound by the Monster, and this is an anthology with multiple different authors like Evangeline Priest and Siemnus Costa, and yeah, it's a bunch of short stories of different monster romances. There's like a dragon romance, a snake romance, literally like all different types of monsters, and you don't have to read them in order. They're not connected. You could just like pick some from your favorite author. One of my favorites is the one that Siemnus Costa wrote. This one is a stepbrother romance, which usually I'm not into, but I really like this one. This one is a paranormal romance, and the one I want to recommend is Not So Kind Regards by Cleo Evans. This is a polyamorous office enemies to lovers romance. The heroine is a demon succubus, and she works for a law office that has a bunch of monsters, and in the same building there's another legal office of witches, and they have kind of a feud. Like, the witches and the monsters, they don't get along, and the two companies decide that they're going to merge, and our characters are real pissed. So this follows the boss of the monsters, the boss of the witches, and then another witch who is a submissive. So like I said, an enemies to lovers romance a little bit, because our three characters definitely do butt heads. It follows our heroine, who is a demon succubus, and she is a dominant heroine. The boss of the witches, who is a switch, meaning he's both submissive and dominant. And then there is another person who works for the legal office. He's a witch and he's more submissive. So it follows their triad, if that makes sense. I feel like I overly explained that book, but it's really good. Next prompt is alien romance, and I have to say I don't have any recommendations for this one. I do love alien romances, but the few that I've read have all been full-length novels, but I know my girl Avery loves alien romances, so she's gonna give you all the recs in her video, so make sure to check them out. Tiffany and Rachel also love alien romances, so that's why we're doing this together, because you guys can get recommendations from them too. Next one is a holiday themed novella, and our group pick, our buddy pick, the one that we're going to be talking about in the live show, fits this prompt perfectly. Next prompt is your favorite trope. So this is definitely up to interpretation. It could be whatever your favorite trope is. My favorite trope is friends to lovers. So the one I would recommend is Crybaby by Marina Vivancos, whom I love. It is a male-male friends to lovers romance. One of our heroes, he is bi, and he's discovering a little kink of his is that he kind of likes when his partner cries, but not like in a way that's like in pain or degradation, but more so like crying like overwhelmed with pleasure. And he's like discovering his own kinks and becoming more comfortable with himself. His best friend actually propositions him. His best friend is gay and has never been in a relationship with a man because he comes from a family and a background that is not totally accepting of it. So he's kind of nervous to jump into a relationship with a guy, especially because he's inexperienced. In his mind, he's like, I trust no one more than my best friend. So he propositions him to a friends to benefit situation, and they have a friends to benefit situation, and it's so cute. Like, they're so sweet together, and this book is also incredibly humorous. I love friends to lovers romances because when they already have that like a base love for each other and friendship and like inside jokes, and then just add steaminess on top of that, sexy times on top of that, perfect. Next and final prompt is a novella that's a part of a series. So I have 2 to recommend. The first one is the Nicola Davidson series. It's a group of Regency historical romances that take place in a BDSM club. There's 3 books in total, and the 3 heroes are friends who decided to open up a BDSM club, and they each have a part in the club. One of them takes care of the staff, one takes care of the entertainment, one takes care of like the financials, and it follows each of their romance. The first book is Surrender to Sin. Our heroine is engaged to marry someone that she has no interest in marrying. He's quite awful actually, and the only way she can think to get out of it is by ruining her reputation. She goes to our hero Sebastian, who she knows has a notorious reputation because he is the owner of this BDSM club, and she's like, ruin me. Do your thing, ruin me, teach me your wicked, wicked ways. And he does. He does. And he like introduces her into the world of BDSM, and it's wonderful. It is fantastic. So steamy. The second book in the series is like a marriage in trouble. And then the third book in the series is a second chance romance. So I would recommend all of them. Another one I would recommend is the series by Erin McLennan. She writes a bunch of novellas based on different holidays as well. So 4th of July, New Year's. She does have one for Valentine's Day. It's called Candy Hearts, and that is a romance. I also really love her New Year's one. That is a sapphic friends to lovers romance. So that series is also really great. So there you go. Those are some recommendations focusing on the prompts that we have for the readathon. I really hope you guys join us for the readathon. Anyone can join, even if you only read 1 book. We would love to have you. Make sure to check out all of the other girls' channels and their videos that will be linked down below. As always, thank you for taking time out of your day to spend time with me. It means the world to me. I hope you guys are all staying happy and healthy, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!